Hello, welcome to the Talking City podcast coming to you from the Manchester Evening News. My name's Joe Bray, joined by Simon Bajkowski, and another week where not a lot's happened in the world of City because everything's happening at the Euro 2024. Um, we're recording on Tuesday, and England play Slovenia, so we'll see if they are any better than the Denmark game. I know you discussed that, Simon, on the last game, but it's I'm not holding out a lot of hope for a radically different England performance, especially given the elite team is almost exactly the same.
Yes. Well, the team is supposedly Conor Gallagher instead of Trent Alexander-Arnold, isn't it? Which is fair enough in the sense that Alexander-Arnold isn't really a sort of good number 8. Still doesn't really solve England's issues, I don't think, and doesn't kind of. I feel like Conor Gallagher's probably closer to the Calvin Phillips replacement that Southgate's talked about, but sort of progressively as a team that would like to keep the ball, I don't really think Gallagher will solve any of the issues with Bellingham and Foden and Kane.
Yeah, for me, I know there's a lot of questions about the England team. I'm not sure if you're asking the right questions, if Conor Gallagher is the answer. I know he's a very good player and he had a very good season for Chelsea. I just don't see him in that England team. I know you discussed Calvin Phillips the other day, but as soon as I heard Southgate say that, I was thinking, you've had 2.5 years to find this replacement. He's not played well. He's not played any football really for 2.5 years. So it feels like if you've gone one tournament, now half a tournament, and all that time, and Gallagher's the option, I'm more than happy to be proved wrong, and he has a stormer and fires England to the Euros title, but I'm not too convinced.
No, and sort of Southgate, instead of saying Calvin Phillips, he could have said Jordan Henderson, and that would have been kind of maybe a better answer, but a similar answer. And England have had less time to get over the absence of Henderson because he kind of made squads even when he left Liverpool last year. And Gallagher is a similar player to Henderson probably. Like he's a very good player in the right system, but I'm just not sure he's the right player for the system England need.
If that team is correct, Phil Foden on the left again, do we think he's going to be a bit more involved? For me, it depends on where Harry Kane plays. If Kane keeps dropping deep, that takes away all the space that Foden should be moving into on the inside. If Kane stays where he is, a bit like Erling Haaland does, Foden has that space to actually impact the game. I think it will depend on the tactics rather than what Foden does, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it, it was really kind of worrying, not just the last performance, but the fact that everyone came out afterwards and basically said we've no idea how we're supposed to play. Like Walker said, we don't know how to press, and you've got like the best pressers in England, Spain, and Germany, kind of not knowing how to press. And in the absence of that, you sort of think Foden is just best served kind of just trying to do a Bellingham and take the game on himself. But we saw against Denmark, he was able to come in a lot more and find the ball more easily. And you'd kind of expect similar again, because I don't really see him going down the left when there's no option for the overlap with Trippier. So it's just, I think everyone, well, a lot of people would like to see Foden in the middle as the number 10, where he sort of would like to play as well. He spent all season, hasn't he, at City saying, I want to play inside, I want to play inside. And I know it's like, oh, well, he can start on the left and drift in, but everyone wants to see him play inside. And the first 2 games have seen him kind of get in the way of Bellingham with the same space. So, I'm not sure people are going to be much happier after the third group game. And maybe Gary Lineker's going to blame journalists again.
It doesn't feel like a game in an opposition that England are going to blow them away and solve all the problems in one. It feels like it'll still go on. But again, if they qualify for the group, they get a more favourable last 16 tie. They can play their way into the tournament, but it feels a lot more negative than recent tournaments, I think.
Yeah, and I said on the last podcast, I was surprised by how much the BBC went in on them. Obviously, Lineker has gone in further on his podcast and then kind of tried to chicken out and blame other journalists for it.
Quoting his own quotes.
Yeah, well, it was that thing, wasn't it, where it was like, oh, other journalists are not brave enough to say what they really think, and it's like, no, it's not that, but like we both sit in press conferences every week, and like it is more relevant to Pep Guardiola if Gary Lineker has called him crap than if we do, because he values Gary Lineker's opinion more than he values ours, and so does the rest of the country. So Lineker might think he's a big broadcaster now, but essentially he's like a like Iker Casillas is for Spain, or what like Lothar Matthäus might be for Germany. Like he's an ex-pro as much as he's a broadcaster. So it's a bit strange. And also the reaction from England has also been a bit weird. And they've sort of got they're so like prickled by people calling their performances out for what they are. And we've seen this with City quite a lot of times, and like it was a prevailing narrative of last season that they thought they got too much criticism and they didn't get enough credit. Now City used that to their advantage and went out and to prove everyone wrong. So England have to do the same if they want to be seen as a top team, and they can't come out and blow Slovenia away 1-0 with another insipid performance. They have to start showing why they should be seen as contenders to win the tournament.
And they have qualified. There is scope to look forward, and I'll say build on it. But yeah, it feels like they're starting from a worse position than when they went into the tournament, going into this third game in terms of performance and optimism, and just the way that when you got Kane saying that him and Bellingham and Foden don't really know how to work together and they're going to work on that. These are probably the three of the best players in their respective leagues last season, not able to play together, and they have played together for the last couple of years and at the last World Cup, and now it just all feels a little bit negative. You used to be able to look forward to a sort of a tournament England game, and it's a bit of a drag, isn't it? England, Slovenia. It's again more than happy to be proved wrong, but I'm not seeing it.
To be fair, we should say it's only more of a drag because expectations are higher, because now we do have, say, the best player in England, Spain and Germany, or not far off. So like it feels more than ever like Southgate has these amazing talents, whereas 2, 4, 6 years ago it felt like Southgate was sort of doing well to shepherd a kind of new culture and new generation through, whereas now it's like they kind of at their, if not at their peak, then at peak levels across Europe, so they should be showing that for their country.
I also think it's the injuries have had a lot of an impact. I think if you had the option of putting Stones a little bit further forward, that could help the midfield issue that they've got in having someone next to Rice. And I'm not saying play him as a defensive midfielder, but you need him at centre back now, and he can't go forward, which is what he would do for City. And it's sort of using all those positions and the sort of things that are holding England back in terms of left back. They've only got one sort of experienced centre back when it comes to internationals in Stones, and Walker's probably having to play more than maybe he would do if you had Alexander-Arnold or Trippier. There's just a lot of things that it's so nearly a very good England team, but there's a few different things. But we do get a last 16 tie at least involving England. A few more players have qualified. Portugal have qualified with a game to spare. I'm looking. I've wrote all this down to make this a seamless overview, and I've messed it up already. Rodri's qualified with Spain. Akanji's having a very good tournament, isn't he? With Switzerland. It seems like so far the tournament's going okay in terms of City, no injuries, players playing well. We'll get onto the Croatian pair in a minute, but who's impressed you so far?
Who has impressed me? What teams or individuals?
I mean, I just thought of the question on the spot, so take it as you want. But
I mean, Germany and Spain have both looked very good. I think they've looked the two best by quite a distance. Sort of, Ilkay Gundogan is still quite the player, and Jamal Musiala is a hell of a player. But Germany and Spain look really well coached. They look like they've got very good systems together and sort of understanding between the groups. But then it's the punditry has also impressed me as an aside. I think Wayne Rooney's been fantastic, and Joe Hart as well. And it's just interesting. Like, I heard Hart and Rooney the other day talking about how 2016 was their the best camp they'd ever been in, and the group was great, and yet 2016 is remembered for being catastrophically bad and losing to Iceland. And it's kind of funny how there's an assumption that, if England have a bad tournament, then there must have been loads of problems in the camp or whatever, and sometimes it isn't the case. But you sort of feel with England, they're searching for that kind of chemistry and to find themselves on the pitch in that 11 as they are sort of as a group, whereas with Spain and Germany, they just seem much more stable. And that is kind of impressive because both of those have kind of dipped in the last 2 years and had sort of changes of coach and things like that, but seem a lot more settled. And in the Spain team as well, Aymeric Laporte also looks very, very good. It's been an interesting tournament, I think, for the Saudi players, because the Saudi players have looked pretty good. And it's a bit like kind of when there was the Live Golf split, and everyone said, they won't be the same competitors, those guys that have left the PGA Tour in golf to go over to Live. And then you've got like Bryson DeChambeau winning majors, and suddenly it's like, no, they're still very good players. And we've seen with kind of I suppose Laporte and Kante for France are among the better players that went, or the younger kind of players that went, but they're still showing that they're capable, and maybe even a bit more refreshed for not having played at the same intensity for the last year or so. Cristiano Ronaldo is kind of outperforming expectations. I think everyone expects him to be a massive burden on the Portugal team, and there are times when you think he is, but then there are also times when he manages to fit in that team. And I'm sure Michael Emenalo, the sporting director for that league, and that competition will be showing off these Euros basically and saying, if you come to us, there's more chance of you being a Laporte or a Kante than there is a Jordan Henderson.
And you can still win trophies for your national team, which is probably one of the criticisms when a player goes there, is that you'll lose your place, and
exactly,
and that'll be the end of your career. A word for Cristiano Ronaldo squaring that goal for Bruno Fernandes, which I think is unheard of, and a shout for that spectacular own goal. But I think that Portugal team as well, I agree with you on Spain. I think they were really good in the sort of quietly good in the qualifiers, and Germany were probably fortunate that they didn't have qualifiers because they weren't very good. But it's all coming together and taking advantage of the sort of the fact that they are the host nation. But yeah, Portugal do seem to be clicking with those attacking players who haven't always clicked so far. Probably the same problems England are experiencing. It does seem to be working, especially with Bernardo Silva. You always forget Bernardo Silva's a brilliant player, and then he plays.
Yeah.
Because he's not the star man. He's not the sort of the fancy one, the Ronaldo, or even the Bruno Fernandes, who's quite loud and in your face about what he does. But Bernardo just gets it done, and he's always there and loves the big games, doesn't he?
Yeah, I did enjoy as well that spectacular own goal from Turkey. That was a Cancelo pass for a Ronaldo run that was never on, and even when they were celebrating the goal, Ronaldo and Cancelo were still kind of bickering, had to be taken to one side by.
So you wouldn't expect that from those two calm heads and level-headed players.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, Portugal have an incredible 11 and squad. and Ruben Diaz at the back, obviously, as well. So they should be right up there as a contender. I think Roberto Martinez has plenty of critics for not getting or not winning more with Belgium. But it'd be interesting to see how far Portugal can go, because that is a super talented squad. And also very impressive was the send off for Scotland. I thought the Bavarian umpire band playing them off was just.
They didn't look to appreciate it, did they?
I don't know who organised it, but it was absolutely outstanding. One of the moments of the tournament for me.
I can't wait for England when they get that after going out to Austria or whoever it is.
What are they going to play? Are they going to play a sad version of Sweet Caroline or something?
Well, the Germans like to use "It's Coming Home" against England, don't they?
Yeah.
Probably something like that. You mentioned Roberto Martinez. He can give us a segue into Belgium, who looked a lot better. I'm enjoying Jeremy Doku at the tournament, and De Bruyne looks at his angry self where he just wants to do everything and score all the goals and do all the passes. And I'm not sure he's still at his calm, brilliant sort of self yet, but the angry De Bruyne is still a very good De Bruyne to watch.
Yeah, and the thing is, I didn't think they were bad in the first game. They just kind of, it was a bit Belgium-y of recent years, where they've just kind of not done enough and been punished for it. But they played pretty well, and they played pretty well in the second game. They didn't take anywhere near the chances they should have taken, because they just demolished Romania, really. But yeah, De Bruyne looks up for it. And if Lukaku can get scoring, then yeah, they will really be ones to watch as well.
I put a bet on Lukaku for Golden Boot, because I thought that group presents itself and he'll have a lot of chances. And then, 3 offside goals?
Yes. Yeah.
Not ideal. I feel like I could have used my pick a little bit better. But looking at the way the draw's falling, we could see some City players face each other in the last 16. I think if Holland and Belgium both finish second, which is still a possibility, then the winner of that would face Portugal in the quarterfinals, if my maths is right. It's all really complicated with these third place finishes, but that could aid City a little bit in terms of having players who are coming back pre-season at different times. It could be Switzerland versus England in the quarterfinals, but they would have to beat Italy, and England would have to win 2 actual games of football. But you could have a situation where slowly we're going to see City players coming home, and the first of those seems to be the Croatian pair, Gvardiol and Kovacic. It's just not gone well for Croatia, has it? Was it 95th and 98th minute goals to drop points, and they looked thoroughly dejected after that Italy goal.
Yes, yeah, as you would be. It's just not really happened for them, and they've kind of, they've massively outperformed as a nation for years, for decades. So, one bad tournament isn't going to be too bad. But, I think City will want to treat it like they do, like every kind of international tournament. They're very proud to have so many representatives. They got, I think, more than any other team in the world there, 14. And they will want as many of their players as possible to be winning the Euros. They'll want to say we've got a Euros winner, just as they have a World Cup winner in Julian Alvarez. So yeah, obviously it's good for them when players do get knocked out, because it means that they can link up with the City first team sooner. But they will also want the pride, really, of having players who've won major tournaments at their club.
And the flip side of those situations I just said is that you are guaranteed players in the next round. If England play Switzerland or Holland play Belgium, you guaranteed the progression as well. So
people always talk about players at major tournaments who impressed, and every club wants those players to be their players. you want to be talking about, oh, Kanji's been the best defender at the Euros, or Phil Foden scored 10 goals in 2 games to shut those critics up, that kind of thing. So City will want those appraisals as the tournament goes on.
And if you're not going to have those players in pre-season, you want them coming back full of momentum and happy, rather
Yeah.
than having got to the final and lost, and you've got unhappy players who are not as fit as you would like them. We'll take a break there, and then we'll come back and have a look at pre-season. I think we're within a month now, and we can start, in the absence of transfer news, we can start looking at what that pre-season squad might look like. Hi there, welcome back to the Talking City podcast. It's a month since City ended the season in the FA Cup final, and it's just under a month until the pre-season gets underway in North Carolina against Celtic. It's looking like it'll be a pretty unfamiliar squad, but we know that there will be a few familiar names within that. We know that obviously Erling Haaland and Oscar Bob are not at the Euros. They'll be there. Edison is not at the Copa America through injury. Jack Grealish not in the England squad, and that's going to be a talking point as long as England continue to not play the best to their abilities. But the players I've got that we can pretty much guarantee are going to be there, I've got Edison, Ortega, Rico Lewis, maybe Sergio Gomez, depending on where he ends up this summer, Grealish, Bob, Haaland and James McAtee, potentially now Gvardiol and Kovacic, depending on how long they get to rest. There's enough of a spine there to have a go at getting some minutes into players and having a go at some tactics, but you're missing a lot of key players as well, aren't you?
You are. I think City are, to a large extent, used to it. Maybe not the last 2 years, because of the last year wasn't a tournament year, and there was the Qatar World Cup, wasn't there? So 2022 wasn't normal either. But it's far from uncharted territory for City to be in a position where they're taking a weaker squad over. Haaland will be there, which is good, but if it's anything like the last 2 years, he's going to be rested and have his minutes managed throughout that tour, so that he's not overloaded at the start of it. So you're really,
you feel like Haaland's there for commercial stuff as
much
as he is for players.
Yeah. Like, it's a dream come true for the commercial team that Haaland's there to be front and center of the tour at a time when most international players won't be there. Look at Hellman's with Jack Grealish and the Euros. Things can quickly go south, but City can say no, Haaland's here. I suppose it kind of ties into the fact that if City are expecting a quieter transfer window, then there's not as much need to sort of, get these tactics underway or anything like that, because we pretty much know what we're getting from City. So it's just a case of when they come back and making sure that when they do come back, they've sort of got their engines fully charged to go again.
Yeah, and it's also a chance for some youngsters to play. We know Rico Lewis a couple of years ago was just added as one of those extra players to have a look at, and he comes on, plays really well, smacks the post against Bayern Munich, and next thing you know, he's a fully fledged first team player, and 6 months later, João Cancelo's out of the door. So there is a chance for that, and we've seen a few young players step up last season, Mike Hamilton and Sissoko and Wright and players like that who might get another chance, and another handful of players who were in the sort of the Club World Cup squad who didn't play but are familiar and sort of often used in first team training and just can get that experience. And you look back on players who have been in these squads, and it's hit and miss, isn't it? But the ones who take that opportunity can go on to have really good careers, or Guardiola can take a look and think, you know what, I like the look of him, or they can say, this guy can play on a par with these first team players, give us a few extra million. And there's always positives when it comes to not having these players, that you can take a look at some of these youngsters as well.
Yeah, I mean, Wright and Sissoko are probably the really interesting ones, in the sense that City desperately need cover for Rodri. They need another body to take the burden off Rodri. Now, you would say ideally City will get that from the market, but they do have these two defensive midfielders who, they've been bringing through their academy, who've been in and around the fringes already, who, first team tour is probably an ideal occasion for them to put their hand up and say, you know what, I can play those 5 league games or something like that, or all the cup games to make sure that Rodri's not needed. So, you would say at this stage that City still need to go to the market, but maybe one of those pops up and says, actually, you can count on me.
And you got the likes of James McAtee, who could leave, could stay. This is a perfect chance, and he did it last summer. He scored against Bayern Munich, I seem to remember, and he can show what he's learned at Sheffield United, and then they can make a decision from there as well.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting summer to see what happens with McAtee again. Sort of went back to Sheffield United, didn't necessarily work out as well as anyone would have wanted, but he still kind of made some decent performances and progressed. So he has a big decision to make, and first and foremost, City want to keep him and him become a first team player at City because he has that potential.
And I wonder if we'll see a bit more of Rico Lewis in midfield, or at least it can pick a position for him and try it away from the sort of pressure of maybe a competitive game, because it seems like he's just thrown around where he's needed, and he didn't play so much at the end of the season. But I think his positioning and the way he's used is going to be quite useful. And again, maybe having Rodri not there is going to be a bit of a blessing in disguise, because there's a chance for all these midfielders to actually show what they can do on their own. And that leads me into a question of Calvin Phillips. Could we see the unlikeliest of unlikely comebacks for Phillips to show what he's learned or not learned at West Ham?
I wouldn't have thought so. It feels like everything. There's nothing that suggests Phillips will come back at City, and even going down to the interview he gave when he went to West Ham and talks about how Pep had upset him and upset his mum by calling him out for being overweight and things like that. You sort of think that, yeah, there's probably not a way back after things like that. I mean, if you Phillips, if you Cancelo, you want to be getting a move as soon as possible. You want to be sorting that out because you want as good a start as you can have to next season with your new club. It was bold of Phillips last summer when his future was in the air to say, no, I want to stay and show myself, and it didn't work out. So I think it would be foolish for him to say the same again.
It's just one of those situations where if he's still contracted at City, he's probably going to be there, but not want to be there longer term. Whether he's not playing is going to be quite indicative of where his future lies.
Yeah, it is, but it's also, again, City took Cancelo last summer on tour when there was no intention of him being part of the first team. They've taken Joe Hart when they took Joe Hart in 2018, so basically 2 years after Pep had bombed him out of the first team. So, I don't think City are going to be too fussed about those players still being there if they haven't sorted moves out, but it won't be seen as, oh, well, maybe they've still got a future.
Yeah, and I'll make it clear that wasn't the line of questioning I was going down.
No,
is he going to be there, and can he do anything to change his mind? I mean, if it all goes square for England and Southgate ends up at Old Trafford, could there be a sensational cross city switch for Phillips? Who knows? I won't put you on the spot with that one, don't worry.
Well, he said he'd never play for United, hasn't he? Unfortunately.
That is very true, and I was there when he said it on the last pre-season tour, so foolish of me to admit that. One last one, we'll keep this a short podcast today because we've got to get prepared for this massive England game. Jack Grealish, it's a massive pre-season for him, and there's reports that he might start reporting early, and that would make sense from his point of view, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I don't know if you've seen on his social media, but he's started doing a bit of work already. It's subtle, not so subtle. Every post appears to be him doing a run in the sun to show how hard he's working. which is great. He just needs to back it up, and back it up from the first training session back with Pep. Pep knows what he can do, and Grealish knows what he can do. It's about having the concentration and the discipline to do it consistently. And there's a big opportunity for Grealish to be in the team at the start of the season and keep his place in the team. But it comes down to him.
Yeah, it's one of them where he's had that kick, and it's how you respond to it. So if his social media, like you say, is anything to go by, he will do that, and maybe the absence of some other wingers will give him a chance to actually play a bit of football and start the season with that shirt and Guardiola show. And if you do that, you'll keep it if you play well. But then you have Foden and Doku and Bernardo coming back, so it's big for him. I do think, and I think he'll be sort of one of the stories of the pre-season. There's always one player, isn't there, where you're looking at, and whether it's if they're there or not. It was De Bruyne last year and he didn't play, but I think Grealish is going to be the story on just what his demeanour is like, what he says, if he does say anything, how he's playing, how he acts, and where he's playing, just all those sort of things. And we will have all the coverage from that tour in a month's time, 4 games, then the Community Shield, and then the season is underway again. It'll be it feels like a long way away, but it will be on us very, very quickly. And as I say, we'll be out there for the Manchester Evening News following every step. And before that, we will have all the fallout from the Euros, any transfer news as and when that kicks into action. It hasn't yet, but surely it will at some point. Thanks for listening. Give us a like and a follow and a positive comment if you can. That always helps. You can find us wherever you find your podcasts, and we'll be back next week to discuss England's sensational 5-0 win over Slovenia when everything's solved and Phil Foden's got a hat-trick. See you then.